Hi, Wafa, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you well.
Okay.
Would you like to test if you can share the presentation? It will be quickly.
Okay, so I'll run it from here. Can you see it?
We can see it. Yes, thank you, Michael. We can see that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Mira, you want to sit here? Hello, Amina. Amina, you want to test if we can hear you? You will be presenting, so we just want to see if you can test.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you, Amina.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Amina, we hear you. There's some background noise. We'll see when you present. Maybe, hopefully, it will. You can try to let it go. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
We will start in 1 minute. Just if you want to test your connection, please let us know.
Can you hear me? Ivo here. Good morning, afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. My connection on my part is very well. I can hear everybody.
Hi, everyone. This is Eric.
Assalamu alaikum. For me, it's okay. I'm Muad from Libya. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. For me, it's okay. It's everything is clear. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello. Okay, so we have like 60 participants registered for the first day and the other 2 days. Now it's 1:30. We will start officially our meeting. صباح الخير، مساء الخير اللي موجودين بمناطق صار فيها بعد الظهر. أنا وفاء أبو الحسن، مديرة الإحصاءات الاقتصادية بشعبة الإحصاء. أرحب بكم جميعاً في هذه ليست ورشة ولكن أسميناها ويبينار. هذا الويبينار هو نحو تحديث نظام الحسابات القومية لعام 2025 تنظمه شعبة الإحصاء في الأمم المتحدة، ونتعاون مع المركز الإحصائي لتعاون مجلس دول الخليج العربية GCC STAT. تأتي هذه الندوة الإقليمية في سياق خطة شعبة الإحصاء بالأمم المتحدة لعقد سلسلة من الندوات الإقليمية بالتنسيق مع اللجان الإقليمية للأمم المتحدة، بدءاً من لمحة عامة عن برنامج تحديث نظام حسابات القومية، تليها ندوات مواضيعية بنهاية 2022. وعلى الرغم من أنه يوم إجازة في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، فقد أخذ زملاؤنا الوقت والجهد معنا للمشاركة في هذه الندوة، ونحن لهم شاكرون من الأمم المتحدة والبنك الدولي. في البدء أعطي الدور للشعبة الإحصائية في الأمم المتحدة مساعد المدير السيد إيفو هافينغا للبدء بمخاطبة المشاركين. Ivo, if you can give your just opening speech, please.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name has been indicated by Wafa, Ivo Havinga. I'm from New York, United Nations Statistics Division. It's a great pleasure to be back with you virtually in the region. I have the great pleasure of welcoming you to this first outreach seminar, which is called an Inception seminar on the update of the system of national accounts, which is part of a broader sort of outreach on the system of national accounts that we organize in conjunction with the regional commission. So I would like to thank Yurai and Wafa and her team for the opportunity to actually be with you in this first sort of seminar, which will become a series of seminars going forward. I do this welcome also on behalf of my colleagues, as been indicated by Wafa, Michael Stenger, who is the interregional advisor working out of New York, and our esteemed colleague Herman Smith, who is heading the National Accounts Program. But in a sense, although I cannot speak on behalf of the World Bank, but I also would indicate that Eric Metrio from the World Bank welcomes you to this meeting, and he will. All three of them will be very prominent in this seminar. I just wanted to indicate that this is an outreach on the system of national accounts, which is part of an update program around macroeconomic standards, including balance of payment. But as you may have been informed. There are other standards being revised as well, those on international trade and international classifications. So there's a broader discussion and research around the economic statistics standards. And the reason for that is that the world around us, as we well know, has changed dramatically. COVID-19 pandemic has been serious for all countries and individuals around the world. And that has provided us new directions from policymakers to inform the impact of that crisis on our societies. This particularly speaks to the point of well-being. We also know that there's an increasing understanding that economic activity brings prosperity, but it also brings negative impacts on the environment. So also that aspect has to be better informed about understanding that link between economic activity and progress and the impact on the environment. Not to speak also about impacts that we see around positive and negative around globalization, where we see there are supply chains and being created that provides us again a lot of employment, but also we have to understand who benefits from that globalization and how are we impacted as individuals as well as countries in linking up in that global value chain environment. The same is with digitization. Again, it brings prosperity and new opportunities to communicate, as we have seen in the COVID-19, but at the same time, there are new elements to be informed that we have to understand around the digital economy. So it's an opportune time to think about how we better broaden our system of national accounts to inform these new sort of developments as we see them developing. So that's an important start point of why we have this series of seminars. A second one, which is equally important, is that we would like you to participate very intensely in this update program. We have done it a bit different than the previous updates of the system of national accounts, like the 2008 system of national accounts. We want to be there with you early. And we want to be there early to get your views, to see what your priorities are in your region, what's important to you as individual countries, to take them on board when we undertake the research and start to understand how the various recommendations as we formulate them is going to, how these recommendations are to be considered by you as a region, as well as by you as individual countries. To do that and to get the best of responses from the countries and from the region, it is important that we reach out to actually explain better what these recommendations are and why they have been formulated. That can only be done through regular meetings. So what we think, this is just a start of a first meeting that we take forward in a series of meetings to actually discuss in more detail with you the recommendations. So the moment that we go back to you in terms of global consultation on guidance notes, as we have called them, these are notes on the research that we take, which include the recommendations. You will be better prepared to formulate your individual as well as regional responses to these individual guidance notes so that they get reflected in a better way. In more detail, we will be with you not only to look at the recommendations, but we have also an opportunity by doing these series of meetings to get a better understanding of where your capabilities are and capacities are. So we will talk in this Inception seminar about the need to do a baseline assessment that we do throughout the world, developing countries and emerging economies alike. We would like to better understand your capabilities when we think about these recommendations. And for that, we develop on a more sort of detailed platform where we're going to collect that information that also will provide as a basis for further sort of assistance to individual countries to understand their requirements when we want to implement the recommendations, but more broadly also the system of national accounts in itself. Furthermore, these series of seminars that we're going to organize, willing that you would participate intently in all these meetings, is also an opportunity to discuss what we call experimental estimates. The need for experimental estimates has arisen, which is also a new element, because we thought it is better to start early by taking and testing some of these recommendations in countries that volunteered to be part of that environment of testing, so that when we actually bring these recommendations forward to the Statistical Commission in 2025, there is an opportunity to indicate that countries have practiced with these recommendations and see how they can be implemented in the countries, and understand the challenges that they have, but maybe also the progress that they have already made. And it is not only to simple test, it is also an opportunity for an early implementation of these recommendations as we go forward on these recommendations. So countries are better positioned than when the system of national accounts is released in 2025. There are many countries that already have developed different sort of estimates on these recommendations. Finally, and then I'll stop, is that the opportunity is now also to get a better understanding what the priorities are in the region, to allow us to better tailor the series of webinars going forward to the countries. And particularly, we would like to get your opinion about what are the thematic priorities that we have. Is it globalization? Are there different elements in globalization? Is it elements of digitization that you would like to look at? Are there more interest in well-being estimates? Or is there more sort of interest in understanding different elements of sustainability? It is important in all these seminars that we go forward on the priorities that we recognize the individual sort of context in which this region finds itself in its diversity, from those that are moving out of a very troubling period before COVID-19 to those that are more advanced. And in that diversity of countries, we will find these recommendations to be of priorities for the countries that we move forward. I look forward to an interesting sort of series of meetings. This is the first one, and I look forward to a successful first Inception mission. And I would like again to thank Uri and the NBAFA and her team for working with us in developing this first seminar. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا للسيد إيفو هافنجا. إيفو حكى لنا يعني عن التحديات والفرص في تطوير نظام الحسابات القومية وأهمية مشاركة الدول دول المنطقة من عنا، والتركيز على الأولويات التي تجدها المنطقة مهمة للمتابعة. يسرني أيضاً أنه يكون GCC ستات مركز الإحصاء الخليجي شريك معنا في هذه الندوة، وإن شاء الله في الورش والاجتماعات القادمة. الدكتور نبيل شمس هو المدير العام الجديد لمركز الإحصاء الخليجي، وهو المدير السابق لهيئة المعلومات والحكومة الإلكترونية البحرينية، وهو شريك للأسكوا في كلي المنصبين. فأدعوه إلى إلقاء كلمة افتتاحية. دكتور نبيل تتفضل.
شكرا دكتورة وفاء. Would you please allow the video to start from your side?
Yes.
Yes. Can you see me?
Yes. Can you? Did you start it from your side?
Yes, I have. You see me now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Havinga, good morning in New York. Dr. Uri, Dr. Wafa, nice to see you again, well and kicking. It is really a great pleasure to welcome you all in this joint SEQA GC Stat Inception webinar for the Gulf region towards the SNA 2025. It is an honor to be here among you, and thank you everyone for making this event possible despite the disruptions caused by the pandemic. Fortunately, we are still able to connect and move forward with our plans. For those who don't know, GC Stat is a regional statistical center for the Gulf countries, and building strong and sustainable partnerships with regional and international organizations is a vital part of our work. These partnerships contribute toward enhancing Gulf statistical products and services and ensuring the application of the latest internationally accepted standards, methods, and classifications. The center is cooperating closely with international organizations to boost the engagement of the Gulf statistical offices and systems and advance the development of the international statistical community. As such, this initiative is the result of hours of work that has made today's event possible to further strengthen and develop collaboration between the center and the big sister in Beirut. The center welcomes the ongoing work of the ISWGNA and its task teams in updating the 2008 SNA and working towards the 2025 system. The center also supports the consolidated SNA research agenda and the list of its research issues. National accounting is a priority project for the region, with utmost importance given to adopting the latest SNA. And since its establishment in 2014, the center is committed to provide intensive technical support to countries in this area, covering a wide range of related issues. While the Gulf countries are committed and progressing with different levels, Saudi Arabia is head away in the economic statistics, allowing the kingdom to join the SDS lately. My colleagues in the center will explain in detail the different speeds the countries are moving. I am all hopes that this meeting will achieve its goals as we move forward by working together, collaborating and mobilizing resources for a better tomorrow. Thank you so much, everybody.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور نبيل، وشكرا أنه على التأكيد على أهمية أنه العمل على تطوير وتطبيق نظام الحسابات القومية وعلى الدعم الفني المطلوب للدول، لأنه أحيانا يمكن ننسى أنه قديش صعب هذا النظام وقديش تطبيقه بيتطلب جهود وموارد لحتى واحد يقدر يطبقه بكل ما هو مطلوب للتطبيق. Yurai, maybe just at the end, just a short briefing so we have the time to do.
Thank you, dear ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, and on behalf of my colleagues in the Economic Statistics team, I would like to welcome you to the Inception webinar for the Arab region towards the 2021-25 update of the system of national accounts. Allow me also to thank the United Nations Statistics Division for bringing the idea of these regional webinars. And I would like to also thank to our partners from the GCC Statistical Center and to congratulate Dr. Nabil Shams for his appointment as the Director General of the Center. The system of national accounts came through several adaptations that reflect the needs of official statistics in support of the economic development and gradually expanded to social and environmental aspects of the society. Personally, I remember the competition between the two systems of economic statistics. And I am from a country that used for a long time the system of net material product. It was in the early 1990s when the system of national accounts expanded to the most of the countries. And this matched well with the completion of the 1993 update of the SNA, replacing the previous 1968 version of the system of national accounts. And I remember it well because it was around the time when I joined the United Nations and its structures of official statistics. But also, the time goes fast. And the 2008 update came and brought an integration of not only economic, but also of social and environmental data into the system of economic accounting. The societies made a significant progress. And due to this progress, due to more needs of data for well-informed policy making, we are facing a need to revisit the concepts and some details of the system of national accounts once again. Countries, regions, and various economic and political groupings of countries have their specific conditions. Therefore, the UN, and here I thank our colleagues from the headquarters, opened the discussion about the 2025 update to everyone. Today's webinar will build on experience with the current 2008 version and then inform the participants about various task teams and the progress of trials that are already underway. I would like to highlight here the issue of the Islamic finance and Islamic banking in the system of national accounts. That is of high importance to our region. Collectively, we have already made a progress among different institutions, and I am really glad that ESCWA is taking part together with those other institutions in this work. Now we should make sure that the result of our work on Islamic banking, Islamic finance, are integrated into the 2025 version of the system of national accounts. I am sure that today's webinar will help us to better understand the process leading towards 2025 SNA, and it will widen the cooperation. I wish everybody that this webinar is a success.
Thank you very much, Yurai. وهيدا بس بذكرنا انه الكوميونتي statistics على الصعيد العالمي وعلى الصعيد الاقليمي يعني هي مترابطه والعمل والتطوير العمل الاحصائي يتم بالتنسيق. فيعني هيدا للتذكير انه يعني مجموعه العمل والعمل تطوير العمل الاحصائي على صعيد العالمي والصعيد الإقليمي هو متزامن يعني ويتبع برنامج عمل مفيد للدول مفيد للمنظمات. إذن مع هذه الكلمات الافتتاحية أود أن يمكن ليس لدينا وقت أن نقوم باستطلاع جدول الأعمال. لقد يعني وزعنا عليكم جدول الأعمال. ممكن أن نتقدم بالجلسة الأولى مباشرة، وهي نظرة عامة على تحديث نظام الحسابات القومية لعام 2008. ستقدم هذه الجلسة لمحة عامة عن عملية تحديث نظام الحسابات القومية وعملية صنع القرار وخطوات إدخال التطوير الجديد في هذا النظام. زميلنا من شعبة الإحصاء بالأمم المتحدة مدير الحسابات القومية هيرمان سميث كان يريد أن يقدم هذا العرض. Herman, if you are with us and you would like to present, can you please?
Good morning,
yes, Herman.
and colleagues. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining.
I will share my screen and share with you a few ideas about the update of the SNA. Quite a bit of it was already shared by our colleagues. Okay, there you go.
Yes, Herman, just let me say also that we distributed the presentations in Arabic. We made the translation and we shared with everyone also the presentations in Arabic, so they can see from their side if they wish. And also we have the interpretation Arabic English. Thank you, Herman.
Thank you, Wafa. Yeah, that helps quite a lot. So I will provide an overview of the project and many of the information points that I will bring here will also be later expanded on. Now, we know that the macroeconomic standards are regularly updated. Yurai reminded us about the net product one, but we also had the 53 SNA up until the 2008 SNA. But we also have the balance of payments, the government finance, the classifications, environmental accounts. So the family of macroeconomic accounts are regularly updated to reflect changes in the economy. Now, these updates are around three groups of items. First of all, conceptual changes. We change what is measured. An example here is that we are looking into how to measure data in the economy. We look also at methodological updates. Iran mentioned Islamic finance, and the measurement of Islamic services is one of the elements that where we would have methodological updates. But we can also have presentational updates. We would like to have a better view of well-being and sustainability within the macro accounts, and we also plan then to do some presentational updates to accommodate that. The whole process for the update was started in 2020 by the United Nations Statistical Commission, and the whole idea was at that time to have incremental research work where we would identify issues to start working on, to provide conceptual solutions, but also to bring in practical testing of those solutions. And for this, we foreseen that we would develop guidance notes for these conceptual solutions, but that we also need to coordinate this work with the other macroeconomic standards to get user inputs into the work, and to extend the SNA to a broader framework to include additional guidance in supplementary tables and satellite accounts. Now, once we have some guidance on the issues, we've seen that we would consult and test on this, and then have a major update. So we've been through this whole process, and we are busy with a major update of the SNA, for which we foresee an editing system that would facilitate more regular update. We would like to better communicate on the SNA through a dedicated website. The branding of the SNA specifically is an important issue that we want to look at, and to provide a digitized version of the SNA. In the sense, not in the sense of a PDF version that you can search, but a truly digitized version that would link up with the various macroeconomic standards. Through this process, we would like to support developing countries in participating in this whole process through human resources and financial resources.
Herman, can you get closer to the microphone so the interpreters can hear better, please?
Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So the whole process is based on 3 legs. The first of it is the technical research work that we undertake for the update. Here we've established a number of task teams who have specific timelines and outputs that they need to look at to draft the guidance notes. And these guidance notes would also include 3 elements. Either the guidance note would provide clarification on an issue, or interpret the guidance on the SNA, or propose a change. And the guidance note would also indicate if it impacts on the central system of the SNA, or is it more related to supplementary tables. And then the third element for the guidance notes is to test the conceptual guidance that has been provided in the guidance note, not only to test its feasibility, but also to ensure that the conceptual guidance is sound. The second leg of the update process is to have a broad consultation on the development of these conceptual guidance. And this meeting is one of that consultation vehicles that that we are using to bring to you the information as we have it at the moment, but also to receive from you inputs into the whole process, and to ensure that we have the regional view, because there is regions have different priorities, so we would like to have your priorities also included into the process. And apart then from these regional meetings, we would also have consultations where we send out the guidance notes for consultation to the relevant users and producers of national account statistics to provide their views on the guidance. Now, the third leg of the approach is to ensure overall consistency between the macroeconomic standards, particularly here, the balance of payments and the national accounts. I mean, there's a very close collaboration between the two work streams to ensure that it's progress in the same manner. Including there is also the government finance statistics, who is also participating in the various task teams. We also have the environmental accounts leg in there, in the sustainability, looking at labor prices and others. Now, why do we embark on or why do we need to embark on an update of the SNA? And there are changes in the economy. You can also remember the Ireland situation in 2015 with the exceptional change in GDP, which was basically related to globalization and how intellectual property was moved from between various jurisdictions. And so we need to have a better idea.
Sorry, Herman, to interrupt you. We still need higher voice.
You need higher voice.
Please.
Is that better?
Yes.
I try my best.
Don't forget, keep it loud.
Okay. Yeah. So. The other element that I've mentioned before is data. Data becomes a very important element of our economy and an important source of production, and we need to account for that in a much better way. GDP is a aggregate of the economy, and changes in GDP tells us what is going on on that level, but it doesn't tell us anything about how that production is shared amongst the various income groups in a country. So therefore, we would also like to look into that well-being element of the economy and have better measures of how income is distributed among households. We also receive quite a lot of free digital services today. And how do we deal with these free services? Many of the services that are being provided are not new, but they are certainly much more prevalent than before. And how do we account for these free services that, in essence, has no value into the whole production process and the asset values that we have? Human capital is not fully reflected in the SNA, but it certainly contributes quite a bit to the whole production process. We only account for labor in the economy through the compensation of employees, but the knowledge of people are being used repeatedly in the production process, and we need to account for that as well. So how far will we be able to also include or at least have a view on how human capital impacts on the production? We need to reflect better on the interaction between the economy and the environment. I think the system of environmental economic accounts provided a framework that we could use, and there are quite a number of elements that are well developed now in the environmental accounts that we could look into, bringing that into the SNA. An example here is how to account for depletion in the economy. We also need to look into how to account for renewable energy resources, and how the biodiversity is being affected by the economy, and have that also reflected in the broader framework of the SNA. Cryptocurrency is something that is on everybody's mind, and is it money or not? How do we account for that? And the debate is quite heated and certainly not resolved at this stage, and how to account for that for cryptocurrencies or crypto assets, as we call it in the SNA. Another important element for many economies, and certainly for your region as well, is how to account for the informal economy. Now, the SNA, 2008 SNA does reflect on that. We have the various ILO resolutions around this, but what we've found is that the terms and definitions are being loosely used, and that has an impact on the comparability of the informal economy elements, both the domestic production and also the cross-border flows around this between countries. And here we're working with the ILO group that is also working on establishing particular definitions for the informal economy on this, and hopefully this will help us then to standardize our discussion around the informal economy, and to ensure that we know that when we look at the values for Ethiopia, where the 30% is part of the informal economy, that we can compare that to the value of Benin of 63%. At this stage of the game, we are not sure, but hopefully going forward, we would know that that's the actual values. Now, the SNA is also full of terms that is very difficult for people that are not familiar with them to understand them. So we would also like to work on these terms and definitions, and to bring a language that is easier for the user to understand, without breaking away from the principles of the SNA. Now, we have various task teams that develop these guidance notes that are being reviewed by the Advisory Expert Group on National Accounts and the Intersecretariat Working Group on National Accounts. And once these guidance notes are ready, we provide that for global consultations, and then when we have the final version available, we then will put it into the SNA, or the balance of payments manual, that is also there relevant. This is another view of the life cycle of a guidance note being drafted by the task team, being reviewed for clearance by the advisory expert group, balance of payments. It goes for public consultation or global consultation. And there's also then the element of experimentation and testing that needs to take place. And once this whole consultation process has been finalized, again, the AEG and the Balance of Payments Committee will endorse it, and hopefully we'll do that jointly for those elements that are relevant for both the Balance of Payments and the national accounts. And once there's a joint endorsement, it will be included in the Balance of Payments update and the SNA update. So there are various research topics. You are familiar with globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability, and a number of others. We bring in also communication, financial issues. You've heard about the importance of Islamic finance, also informal economy in your region. I'm not going to go through the list of task teams. I'm sure that Michael and colleagues will go into a bit more detail about those task teams that are working on the research topics. So there are quite a number of, so each of these task teams are being supported by the international organizations, and the task teams are being led by advisory expert group members. And of course, in the case of the balance of payments, it would be a balance of payments colleagues. There's a whole list of all the number of guidance notes. At this stage, we talk about 75 guidance notes only in the area of national accounts, and the overlapping guidance notes with the balance of payments. Now, it brings us then to the other element, the assessment and experimentation of these guidance. Michael will talk about this in much more detail. We would like to look at first an assessment of the structural production process of the data in countries, and also would like to obtain more specific information on the elements that are required for implementing specific guidance. And through that, we will then be able to look at the feasibility to implement these guidance notes. We see that these experimentation and testing as an early implementation, I think you will also mention that, and hopefully through that, we would, by the end of when we endorse the 25 SNA, that we would also be able to, at that time, immediately being able to implement it. And through this, we would have then also an assessment of the impact of the changes in the national accounts compilation process. Through this assessment and experimentation process, we would also report and gather results and have that centrally available so that we can provide feedback from the compilation side and also from the country side, and share then information. I have two questions for your consideration. What would be the main priority or the most relevant issue for your country? And do you plan to participate in the global consultation. And if you're not, we would like to know why, and if there's anything that we can do that we could help you to participate in this process. In my last slide, I've provided a link there to the SNA update web page that provides quite a bit of information on it, where you can also find the documents for the consultations. If you have any questions, you can write to us at that email address, sna@un.org. I move back one to the questions for consideration. Again, what would be the main priority for you, and are you going to participate in the global consultations? Wafa, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Herman. Thank you for that, and for guiding us through why and how the process went. And you said there are 75 guidance notes, a lot of work from experts from many countries and many organizations. What we propose in this, we prepared like polling questions to see from the side of countries and participants what are the priorities. And those priorities, if those of you who joined us in the last high-level meeting on economic statistics, many of those issues were discussed during the meeting. But for now, it's the first time we use this. I hope it's going to be easy. We will try to launch a poll with the questions, and you can just select the question, the answer that you want, and we can watch it together on the screen. And those also will be in the report when we prepare the report. So Christophe will launch this. And if you would like to start checking what are the answers from your side, and then we can see together what are the priorities. So if you want, you can start checking from your side if you can answer the questions. And you can select one or more option. And mind you, we cannot change because we are co-hosts. We cannot vote. So it's the participants from the countries where we want to hear the voting for. So it's really nice to see this, and it's consistent with what we discussed before. We need more votes. It's only 13%. So please, if you are from a country, you have the presentations in Arabic, you have the priorities. Let's see if we can have few more votes. So we'll stop at 3 minutes. We'll wait a few more. اوكي شكرا كثير للي صوتوا معنا، وهيك بيصير هيك more interactive و dynamic ال participation. So I think مثل ما كنا يعني المواضيع اللي تناقشت قبل واللي كنا أكثر متفقين عليها، I think نحن عنا ال informal economy is very important. And مشان هيك في عنا session بالtechnical advisory group just على informal economy. ولازم يعني we plan a workshop on informal economy. We have digitalization on digitization، وكمان انه متفقين انه هيدا موضوع مهم، ثيم مهم، سواء بالسبلاي اند يوز او ديجيتال تريد كمان لازم نشتغل عليه سوية. Islamic finance مثل ما قلنا بالدول العربية والدول الإسلامية موضوع مهم واقل اهميه، وهذا اللي بنقوله نحن لزملائنا بشعبة الاحصاء بالامم المتحده. الجلوباليزيشن اقل اهميه من غير مواضيع، لانه يعني السبلاي تشين منا باهميه المناطق الاخرى. الكوميونيكيشن ايضا مهم ولكن باهميه اقل، والبالانس اوف بيمنتس. هلا السؤال، هل تودون المشاركة في المشاورات العالمية؟ شكرا اللي جاوب انه يس، هذه الندوة هي من هذه المشاورات. اللي لا يعلم بعد، إذا كمان في عنا بعض لا يعلمون إذا كان مكاتبهم يريدون أن يشاركون في هذه المشاورات. ثالث سؤال، أي نوع من الدعم تودون الحصول عليه؟ نحن جدا سعيدين انه نشوف انه بهمكم يكون في ورش عمل اقليميه، طبعا مهمه لانه بيكون فيها تبادل خبرات، تبادل معلومات، وايضا ممكن لما بنشتغل على ورش عمل اقليميه كل المنظمات فيها تشارك فيها وتكون النتيجه افضل، فانه هذا الجواب مهم. طبعا ايضا مهم الدعم الفني وورش العمل الوطنية، ويعني المساعدة بالانفراستراكشر، هيدا يعني نشوف مين المنظمات اللي فيها تساعد بالانفراستراكشر. واخيرا الفيلوشيب بروجرام، يعني هو مفيد ولكن باوضاع الكورونا وعدم القدرة على السفر ايضا بيكون في يعني ليميتيشنز فيها. اذا شكرا جزيلا على التصويت بهيدا. نحن كريستوف فينا ناخذ الريزلتس هدول، اذا الريزلتس فينا نشارككم معكم. اذا مالك، شكرا مالك على التعليق. مالك بني هانا زميلنا من IMF عم بيقول الجلوباليزيشن والديجيتاليزيشن في عندهم تأثير على البالانس اوف بيمنتس والناشونال اكاونتس. طبعا لا يمكن ان تجاهل الجلوباليزيشن، ويجب الإحاطة يعني وقياس يعني هذه الترانزاكشنز. فشكرا مالك على التعليق. في أي تعليق قبل ما ننتقل للجلسة الثانية؟ فيكن على التشات، أو إذا في مداخلة فيكن raise your hand. مالك you want to intervene? Please مالك باختصار، يلا تفضل.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to interrupt my remarks. I said the following, that digitalization, Islamic financing, globalization, all of them, communication have impacts. So when you say that balance of payment, one of the priority or national accounts is a priority, that is my remarks. It's not a priority because all of them will at the end will have impacts on balance of payment and national accounts. So putting balance of payments as a priority, against this. This is my main remarks. Just only to offer. Thank you.
Yes, maybe you're right. It's maybe our colleagues from UNSD might have an answer for that. Like you said, maybe it's like the effect on national accounts. So it's something that those factors affect balance of payments and national accounts. Maybe during the sessions, we will have something from Michael or Herman on this. إذا خلينا نحن ننتقل لأنه صار في شوي تأخير بالأجندة، ورح يكون بكل جلسة بعد كل جلسة الأسئلة اللي مطروحة بالعروض رح نعملها بشكل بول. فهيك مثل ما قلنا انه بيصير في مشاركه اكثر من قبلكم. اذا الجلسه الثانيه رح ننتقل لها، هي كيف تم انشاء فرق العمل وكيف تقوم فرق العمل بكتابه او اعداد المذكرات الارشاديه. إذا معنا إريك رولون مترو من البنك الدولي رح يقدم لنا هيدا العرض. و إريك, if you can share your slides please, your presentation. Sorry. Okay. Can I share results?
Can you hear me, Wafa?
Yes, we hear you well, Eric. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am trying to share my screen.
If you don't speak loud, I'm going to remind you so the interpreter will hear what you're saying.
Okay, I am trying to share my screen, but I lost.
We see it.
Okay. And you see the presentation?
Yes, but not in presentation mode. If you can put it in presentation mode.
Okay. Is it better?
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I will make a presentation on the various guidance notes that are prepared, and I will explain a little bit what is life cycle of these guidance notes, and also I will provide a few detail on the topics that are discussed through these guidance notes. And the idea, of course, is to give you the opportunity to be part of the process, which is really important, as explained by Ivo, because at the end of the day, shortly after 2025, you will have to implement the new system. And it means that the system needs to be well designed for all countries, and especially for the region. So it is important that your voice is heard to ensure that the system is well fitted for your countries. So this is a slide that was already presented by Herman. And actually, I will only focus on the first part of the three-stage approach, which is the technical research. And later on, my colleague, Michael, will talk about the consultation process. This slide was also presented by Herman and explained how, from the guidance notes that are currently discussed by various task teams, we will arrive to the drafting of the new manuals, and especially the SNA and the BPM. So, as you can see, and maybe a bit different from what we have seen in the past for the 1993 SNA or 2008 SNA, there is really a try to make it as a global effort. And on this map, you can see all the countries that are really involved directly in the process. So, as you can see in the task team, various task team, we have contribution from over 20 countries all over the world and in all continents. The secretariat of these different task teams are provided by international agencies that are part of the ISWGNA, so namely UNSD, IMF, Eurostat, OECD, and the World Bank. And it's also something that is involving experts from all statistical domains. And it's really important to ensure that the modifications that will be brought to the system of national accounts are at the same time brought to other statistical domains when relevant for them. And so there are a lot of joint task teams, especially between the SNA and BPM, but experts from the other statistical domains are also involved in the process when it's relevant. So the work is based on a research agenda that has been discussed for quite a while. And we have a list of research issues that need to be addressed. Some priority areas have been identified, and they are related again on globalization, digitalization, well-being and sustainability, which is a bit new, some cross-cutting issues, and also some compilation issues. But there are also some research issues that remains in what we call the long-term SNA research agenda, which means that they may not be addressed for the 2025 update. So the priority is really on the globalization, digitalization, and so on, and also communication that has been added a little later. So the different task teams are organized around work streams that were launched to resolve issues related to these priority areas. And the work streams are organized by task teams. So there is a task team on globalization, task team on digitalization, and so on. So these task teams are composed of experts from different countries, and they are overseen by different steering committees. So BOPCOM and for balance of payment issues, and AG and the ISWGNA for the national accounts issues. And the ISWGNA provides a secretariat. So these task teams are drafting guidance notes that are discussed among experts for each of the priority. And these guidance notes are covering issues in both conceptual and practical way. So it is important that conceptually what is proposed is sound, of course, but it's also important that the applicability, the implementation of the proposal are easy, or as easy as possible. And it is important to test this aspect of the guidance notes. So you have here a view of all task teams that have been set. So digitalization and well-being and sustainability, which are more on the SNA side, BOP have also their own issues, but we have a lot of joint areas, including globalization, financial issues, intellectual property products, Islamic finance, informal economy, and also communication, statistical units, and classification. And all these issues are being addressed at the same time in the near future. So this slide shows again the different task teams, but also who is responsible for leading this task team. So as you can see it, countries mainly are leading the different task teams, and international organizations are providing secretariat services. Now, in terms of numbers of members, you can see that we have overall more than 300 experts working in the different task teams. And of course, depending on the topics, you can have small teams or extended teams. You can see, for example, that for the well-being task team, you have more than 70 experts, because there are a lot of different sub-task teams addressing a lot of different issues, and I will provide some detail about that. And other task teams are composed of a more limited number of experts. As for the number of issues, we have 11 pure SNA issues, 31 joint SNA BPM issues that are discussed through the task teams, and also 47 issues that are more specific to the balance of payment area. And again, depending on the topics, the areas, you may have various number of issues discussed within the task team. So for each of the issues that are discussed, the guidance note that is drafted is meant to clearly identify the issues that may be affecting the central framework, or that could be addressed in supplementary tables or satellite accounts. And again, in the guidance note, it's not only on the conceptual implications of the proposal, but also the feasibility of their implementation. And my colleague Michael will also talk about that. So at the end of the day, the practical guidance will reflect on the experimentation and testing phase of related to the compilation issues. So the idea is to draft a guidance note, then to test it, and from the testing results, the guidance note may be modified to reflect the result of this experimentation and testing phase. So now, but still quickly, some more details on the different topics that are discussed in the various task teams, starting with digitalization. So one is this idea of a digital supply and use table. And there the idea is to increase the visibility of digitalization in the national accounts. And as you know, if you take, for example, the classification of industry, digitalized industries are not very visible in the current classification. So it's sometimes difficult to assess the importance of digitalization in the economy because of that. And so the supply and use table is trying to address this issue by making it easier to see what is the size of the digitalized economy within the global economy. So the supply and use table, the digital supply and use table, includes some more details that are really related to digitalization in terms of industry, but also in terms of products and how products are acquired and distributed. Specific issues, which is sometimes quite tricky, is the measurement of price and volume of goods and services affected by digitalization. And it's probably the traditional data sources will need to be updated more frequently to capture rapid changes associated with digitalization. And also, by essence, some digital goods and services, the price of these goods and services are difficult to measure. So the team working on that is trying to figure out how to do that. Herman mentions issues related to the recording of data in the national accounts, and especially how to measure the value of data in the national accounts. And there again, there are a lot of discussions on how to measure the value of data, what needs to be measured, when does information becomes data and needs to be part of what is measured in national accounts. So all these things are discussed in this task team, and they will come up with some proposal around that. Linked to this evaluation of free assets and free services, and how these free services impact our lives. Now you can reserve your travel online. You don't need to go to the store, so it has obviously an impact on your life. How all of this must be reflected in the system is part of this national account. And also, when we say free, well, is it really free, or don't we provide some information that are that have some values in exchange of these free services? It's also something that needs to be thought about. The issue of crypto assets is also something that is quite difficult. There is quite a common understanding that they are assets, but then it becomes a bit more difficult. Are they non-financial assets, financial assets? If they are financial assets, what kind of financial assets are they? The answer is not obvious, especially because there are a lot of different types of crypto assets, and depending on the type of crypto assets we are looking at, the answer may be different. So you have quickly seen in one of the slides shown by Herman, there is a decision tree that helps making this decision on which type of assets a crypto asset is. Still on digitalization, some new topics have emerged in the recent past, and they are related on artificial intelligence. It is expected that artificial intelligence has a real impact on the economy, but there again, it's a bit difficult because there is no common definition on what artificial intelligence is, and then it becomes a bit difficult to see how it should be reflected in the national account. So there are some discussion about that. Cloud computing is also something new, but developing very quickly. You know, nowadays, you don't need to have your own server, your own hard computing. You can go in the cloud and rent services from the cloud. So that is also something that needs to be reflected in the national account, with some tricky issues again related to price and volume measures. And eventually all the issues related to digital intermediary platforms, how to measure the services rendered by these platforms is also something that is discussed within this task team. Something like Uber. What is Uber? How should Uber be reflected in the accounts? There are different ideas on this, and this is still a matter of discussion in the different groups. Then on well-being and sustainability, so I've seen through the poll that it may not be something very, as you see, as a priority for the region. Maybe because it's something really new. Really, this issue emerged after the Fiduci report that dates back from the late 2009, I think. So it was after the adoption of the 2008 SNA. And the idea was to provide a better measure of economic performance that would take into account well-being and sustainability. So there are discussions within this task team about the distribution of income and saving within the household sector. So the idea is not to have the household sector as one sector, but to have more granularity within the sector, depending on different kind of sectors. So we have this granularity in household surveys. So the idea is to make a link between the micro information we have in the household surveys and the national accounts, which is by essence a macro description of the economy. So there are discussions about that, but it's really a very interesting thing, because we can't think the household sector as one. There are very different types of households, and they don't all benefit in the same way of the increase of GDP, for example. So it's important to make this distinction. Another issue is related to households' unpaid service work. So when you are driving your kids at school, when you are taking care of the kids at home, and when you are preparing meals, all of this is unpaid service work, and there is some views that should be actually measured. So the discussion then is how to measure it and how it should be reflected in the system of national accounts. So the idea is not really to change the central framework, but somehow to see what could be the contribution of unpaid service work in the economy. And actually there are a few countries that are already trying to measure these unpaid services, and like the UK, USA as well, I think the Netherlands, Australia. And the results are interesting because it's really a large part of GDP. It's really huge. And it's important because it takes a lot of time to some members of the household to provide these services. So it's important to somehow see what it represents. Another topic is related to health and social conditions. And as you know, there is a system of health accounts that is here. So the idea is to make a better linkage between this system of health accounts and national accounts, which means that there may be a need to rethink the existing classifications of products and industries, maybe increase the detail, and also propose some conceptual adjustments. Something very important as well is related to labor, education, and human capital. And there's the idea is really to have new labor accounts in physical units. So not only in values, but also in physical units. And also to introduce new detail on education and training, and have some extended alternative human capital assets. As mentioned by Herman again, there will also a need to have a better linkage to the environmental economic accounting. And there's the topics that are discussed are related to the ownership and depletion of natural resources. As you know, currently, ownership of natural resources is mainly the legal owner, which means general government. But in practice, it appears that the benefits and the risks are shared between the general government and corporations that are exploiting the natural resources. So there is a need to take that into account in the system. And there is also the need to increase the emphasis on depletion adjusted net measures. So the idea is not, when we are talking about net measures of savings or as aggregates, not only net of consumption of fixed capital, but also net of depletion, which is really something important for the future generations. And also there is an idea of maybe not taking account only energy and energy resources, but also other types of resources when they are exploited in a way that is not sustainable. And this is related to biological resources. So the idea is to rethink of the SNA production and asset concepts, for example, for cultivated assets, to better align with what is currently the SIA. And also there are discussions about the treatment of emissions permits, and especially emissions of carbon, with some consideration of the atmosphere as an asset. So is atmosphere an asset? And if it is an asset, is it possible to measure it? Probably not. But this has some implication for both the SNA and the SIA. Another priority area is globalization. And maybe you have seen some work already related to valuation of imports and exports, and also the CFOB adjustment. And there the idea is, as everywhere else in the system, use transaction value rather than this CFOB valuation for imports and exports. But it means that we need new data sources to do that. So there are some discussion on whether it's possible to implement it in all countries. There are also a discussion about multinational enterprises and how their flows, how their operation should be measured in the system. The treatment of SPE, whether they are resident or not, there are some differences with BOP that needs to be addressed. You may be more familiar with mercanting and factory-less goods producers and how it's recorded in the system. Mercanting, you know, this negative and positive exports, which is a bit weird in some sense, so should be do differently. And factory-less good producers, they have a strange production account between they are not the owner of the inputs and not the owner of the outputs. So how this should be reflected in the accounts is also something that is discussed. Global value chains and trade in value added is also something that has been widely discussed in the recent past and should be better reflected in the accounts. And also something also important, at least for some countries, as shown by Eiermann in his presentation when he was talking about Ireland, the example of Ireland. And this is really linked to this issue of economic ownership and recording of IPPs. On the informal economy, and here informal economy must be understood in wide concept, so it's more non-observed economy, if you want. There are some discussion on the framework to be used to describe the informal economy in the system and the different classification to be used. how to better measure the informal cross-border transaction, including transaction related to e-commerce, all issues related to the digitalization within the informal economy, and also the need to have a presentation of the informal economy that makes it more visible in the system of national accounts. Some countries are already able to really make the distinction between or measure the contribution of the informal economy in their national accounts, but it's not always the case. And at least for countries where the informal economy is a large part of the economy, it's really important to show it as a specific contribution to the economy. I won't say much about Islamic finance because we will have a very detailed presentation on it momentarily. And I will talk a little bit more on communication issues. So it's related to first to terminology. And the idea is that for the public at large, some of the concepts we are using can't be understood by the general public. So if you talk about GFCF, probably very few people are able to understand what you are talking about. So the idea is to provide some alternative terms that would be better understood by users in general, but the general public especially. So of course, when we are talking among national accountants, we understand what we are talking about, but beyond the community of national accountants and maybe some very specific users, then it becomes more difficult. And it's important to be able to communicate better to the users. That's ultimately what we want. We are not compiling national accounts for ourselves. We are compiling national accounts so that they can be used by decision makers, researchers, and the public at large. So it's important to be understood by all users. There are also some discussion about taxonomy. There are various terms that are being used. And so the idea is to see whether it is possible to have some common approach to describe the different vintages of macroeconomic statistics. And finally, there is this idea that we need a framework to measure the alignment of a country with the different systems, national accounts, balance of payment, and others. And the idea is to develop a framework that would allow to provide this measure of the degree of alignment with international standards. And then it's about global consultations, and I will go quickly as well on this because my colleague Michael will talk in more detail about that. Finally, and it's part also of communication task teams, so the idea is that we need consultations, and you have this website on the UNSD website, or this part of the UNSD website, where you can find really a lot of information on the updating process, including information related to the AEG. Not everything is accessible, but you will find anyway interesting information also about the different task teams, the current consultations. So, for example, you had a consultation about the evaluation of important exports that was launched in the past month with the different documentation related to these issues. And so we will have more on these consultations in the future. There are 35 priority research issues leading to 75 potential guidance notes that will be cleared by the different committees. Then the discussion is whether all the guidance notes needs to be tested or experimented in all countries, and obviously this may be a bit difficult. So the idea is obviously not that all countries provide comments on all the guidance notes or experiment and test all the guidance notes, but depending on the interest of different countries and relevance of the issues in the countries, it will be tested in a few countries. But it's also important that all the continents, all the level of development of statistical infrastructure in the countries be represented in the testing and experimentation phase, so that at the end of the day, all views of all countries are reflected in the forthcoming 2025 system of national accounts. So the different phases that are envisaged, ideally, the testing phase should start this year. The drafting of the new manuals will start shortly after, or indeed at the same time, so starting in 2022. And to be possible, it means that close to final decisions for adoption must be taken by the end of 2022 for the majority of the research issues. And it means that the guidance notes or proposals that are being made are tested in parallel to the drafting phase. So again, not everything needs to be tested, and it should be mostly focusing on significant issues that may require new institutional arrangement, new collections of data, new statistical production structures, or even new statistical infrastructure. And the drafting of the parts subject to testing should be addressed first. So it's really important, this testing phase is really important to ensure that recommendations that may be optimal on a conceptual side may not be easy to implement in the countries. And it means that such recommendation may not be taken on board for the 2025 SNA, but maybe at a later stage. So again, we have a few questions for your consideration. The first one is if there is some of these topics that I've briefly described already being developed in your country, and if yes, which ones? And also, and it's important for the future webinars, what topics you are interested or you would like to be covered in these webinars. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. It was a comprehensive presentation on the process. And for the questions, we'll leave it for we'll do a poll for the questions. So thank you very much. We will go directly to the example of the guidance note on the Islamic finance and national accounts. And I would like to thank very much the members of this joint task team, the chairs and co-chairs from Palestine and Morocco, and the Secretariat from UNSD and ESCWA. So they will present briefly because it's a good example how our member countries participated in this update process. And this is just a lot of work, organizing meetings, getting to experts, doing all this to write the guidance note. So I'm going to ask both. I think we have Munir just to show us the camera, Munir, and we have Amina from Palestine who will be presenting, and I have Omar next to me who was also guiding, and we have Benson Sim from UNSD. Everybody was working hard to make this and continue this work. So just Amina, if you can share your presentation, please.
Yes, Wafa, thank you.
Yeah, we can briefly update our audience on how this went on. And Munir, if you can show us on the camera, we can also would like to see.
Yeah, thank you, Amina. It seems it's need an intervention from the host.
Yes, we can see the presentation, and it's a joint presentation. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you, Wafa. Good afternoon and good morning. Can you hear me well, first of all?
Yes, we do. Go on.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, good morning for all of you. And as it was mentioned on the previous presentations, that the Islamic Finance Task Team is one of the joint task teams within the updates of the System of National Account and also the Balance of Payment Manual. My name is Amina Khassib. I'm the Director of the National Accounts at the Palestinian Center Bureau of Statistics, and also my colleague Munir from the Foreign Exchange Office in Morocco. We are acting as co-chairs of this joint task team. On this presentation, I will go through the work have been done and also the way forward in preparing the guidance note for the Islamic Finance Task Team. Actually, and first of all, we can say that the Islamic finance does not operate in the same way as the conventional banking, as it follows the Sharia Islamic law and principles. And meanwhile, the international statistical standards does not sufficiently cover the integration of the Islamic finance into the macroeconomic and also the financial statistics, except the IMF manual, which is the monetary and the financial statistics manual and the compilation guide. Actually, in the 10th advisory expert group meeting on the 2016, it was noted the differences between the Islamic and the conventional banking, and taking into consideration the importance of the Islamic banking for in some economies and the relative rapid growth for it also. And it was agreed that further research is needed. In 2017, the OSCO and the UNSD formed the Inter-Secretariat Working Group for National Account Task Force on Islamic Finance, which held two face-to-face meetings in 2017 in Beirut and 2018 in Ankara. During the other also advisory expert group meetings on 2017 and till 2019, it was discussed the progress of work of this task force and provide the guidance on the way forward. But on March 2020, and the Statistical Commission in its 51st session requested the Inter-Secretariat Working Group for National Account to prepare a roadmap to update the SNA 2008, and the target release date is March 2025. The IMF and the BOPCOM also launched a parallel process to update the manual of balance of payment manual, the 6th edition. So in April 2020, both of Inter-Secretariat Working Group for National Account and also the BOPCOM formed the joint task team on Islamic finance, which is a joint task team. Actually, the main objectives of the Islamic finance task team is dealing with the issues arising from the need for further integration of the Islamic finance and the related concepts into the macroeconomic and financial statistics. In addition to that, there is a need for further research and developing methodology guidance on the treatment of Islamic finance in national accounts and external sector statistics. Also, there is a need to assess whether the changes in the methodology of the national accounts and the external sector statistics are required to allow for full and proper reflection of Islamic finance in macroeconomic and financial statistics. It's a collaborative global initiative, and it was established, as I mentioned, by the Inter-Secretariat Working Group for National Accounts and also the BOPCOM, and it's chaired by the State of Palestine from my side as a national accountant, and also my co-chair Munir for the external sector statistics. The secretariat are the UNSD and also the SCOA. About the membership, it includes experts from countries where the Islamic finance is prevalent in the area of the national account and also the external sector statistics and the other macroeconomic statistics. But in addition to that, we have also experts from relevant international and regional organizations, such as the IOFI and also the Islamic Financial Services Board, the IMF, the CISRIC, OECD, and CIBAFI. So we have also members from other regional and international organizations. Actually, the 6 research topics, those are the 6 research topics that were suggested and also discussed in several meetings held by the co-chairs with the Secretariat, and those was also confirmed and adapted after the first meeting, which was held in September of the previous year with the Islamic Finance Task Team members, and we agreed on those 6 research topics that have to be put in within the guidance note for the Islamic Finance Task Team. First of all is about the terminology for property income for Islamic loans, deposits, and the debt securities. The other research topic about the reference rates, and all of us are well known about the reference rates and the terminology for calculating the FISM within the Islamic and conventional banking in the context of the national accounts and also the external sector statistics. The next research topic is about the statistical treatment of Islamic finance in external sector statistics and national accounts, including the functional categories of the investment. The other research topic is about the sectorization of Islamic banks with the multiple activities and also the Islamic windows. The next one is about the economic ownership of non-financial assets related to sales, lease, and equity finance, which are legally owned by the Islamic Financial Corporation. The last research topic is about the Islamic insurance, about the takaful and re-takaful. Here we will talk about the coordination, and according to the 6 research topic that I mentioned, the joint task team forms 6 sub-task team for each topic of those 6 research topics, and then assign lead and co-lead for each sub-task team. Actually, 3 rounds of meetings for each subtask team were conducted during the period of January of this year till April. We have 3 rounds of meetings for each subtask team and to discuss and also to put schedules for finalizing the draft guidance note and also the context of each topic by consulting also the members and also the experts and the secretaries. Reaching finally to the consolidated guidance note for the Islamic finance task team. Actually, the structure of the guidance note it starts with an introduction to the issue, including background information for the global issues of Islamic finance treatment on the national account and also the international accounts. In addition to the existing materials, include the existing SNA and also the balance of payment frameworks with the other existing materials such as the handbooks, the technical papers, the advisory expert group, and the BOBCOM papers within their previous meeting. In addition to that, within this guidance note, we will have an options considered, and within this option considered, we will have the list of options with the advantage and disadvantage considered, and also distinguishing between those which would require a change in the central system from other which would be have more or further development. In addition to that, we will have the recommended approach either for the conceptual aspect or the practical aspects about the data sources, the quality, and the need for modeling. In addition to that, if there is any changes required to the SNA 2008 or the balance of payment manual and other statistical domains. And finally, we will have the questions for discussion and also the annexes. Here we will mention the Islamic finance task team timeline, and in order to finalize the final guidance note for endorsement from both the BOBCOM or the advisory expert group, the following timeline was suggested. During the January till April of 2021, there were 3 rounds of meetings for the subtask teams and with the secretariat. During the beginning of July, we will have the first draft of the consolidated guidance note. And after that, we will have our consultation within the members of the Islamic finance task team, and it will be ended by mid of July. After that, we will submit the guidance note to the advisory expert group and the intersecretariat working group for national account and also the balance of payment task team. By the beginning of August till the beginning of September, we will have the public consultation, and it will last for 4 weeks. So it will be a good period or a good time for the public consultation. And we know that the public consultation is a two-way dialogue. So we need here to have, as I mentioned, two-way dialogue, not only one way to have the information only. And reaching for the finalization of the guidance note by 24th of September. So in order to reach the final guidance note, in July we will have the first draft. In August we will submit the final guidance note. The public consultation will end by the beginning of September, and after that we will submit the final guidance note for endorsement within the meetings of the BOBCOM and also the advisory expert group and the intersecretariat working group for national account. Actually, and finally, one of the main targets of the work program for updating the system of national account 2008 is the country involvement. And this was achieved through different ways about the country involvement. One of them is the participation in the system of national account task teams. And at the ESCO region, 2 countries are involved in the Islamic finance task teams as co-chairs. State of Palestine and also Morocco. And let me, on behalf of my co-chair Munir also, we would like to thank the Secretariat and both UNSD and OSCOA for this great opportunity to be involved on preparing this guidance note for the Islamic finance within our region. In addition to that, there was selecting members for the Islamic finance task team from the national statistical offices and also other relevant compiling agencies with the direct consultation from the Secretariat, both the UNSD and also the OSCOA. The national statistical offices are also engaged and continuously consulted during the update process phases, and you can visit the link below to have the list of the consultation that carried out on the system of national account update issues. So you have here the link, and you can visit it to have all the issues that will have consultation and carried out after that. Actually, the outreach and the consultation with the countries should not be limited to the national statistical offices, but shall also be broadening to include other producers and also the users, such as the policy makers, the academia at the national and also the regional level. So actually, we encourage all the national statistical offices and the other relevant agencies to share this consultation phase and issues with other producer and user at the countries in order to have a global consultation about this issue. That's what I have to say about the Islamic finance, and I want to thank all the members and also my co-chair, the Secretariat, Mr. Omar Hakouz Benson, for all the efforts during this work. And I will let my co-chair Munir to have his intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina. Thank you. And that's a very good example on, how member countries, our region, member countries from our region, with secretarial support from UNSD and our side, can bring like a specialty or expertise from the region to this. Munir, you wanted to intervene?
Yes.
You can remove your sharing screen, Amina. And yes, just Munir, just quickly, 1 minute. We're glad to see you here.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Amina. Wafa, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well. Okay,
that's fine. Many thanks for the invitation to share the Islamic Finance Task Team experience, which is, as Amina said, a collaborative global initiative. I have no much to add. In 1 minute, I would like just, if you let me a few remarks, I would like first, from my second umbrella.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam. Yeah.
Please keep your mics muted unless you have a question and we ask you to intervene. Continue, Munir, please.
Okay, thank you. So let me please, from my second umbrella as balance of payments compiler, emphasis on the unprecedented opportunity to have coordinated process for updating both system of national account and balance of payment manual in the same period, targeting also the same publication, which is 2025. And this will be conducted during 5 years of intensive collaboration through many work streams and joint task teams involving experts from national account and balance of payment, but also experts from other macroeconomic statistics frameworks. So the good news is that the ongoing work trying to enhance consistency and convergence between international standards would facilitate obviously the collaboration between statistics producers at national level. And indeed, it is a preamble of the expected coordination and the needed institutional arrangement between macroeconomic statistics compilers and agencies. And secondly, since I got this huge responsibility with Amina to co-chair the IFTT, I would like to take this opportunity and to thank all participants from the region for their incredible work, and also all the institutions behind for their support. And I would like particularly to recognize the high contribution from countries and institutions out of our region we can just imagine how difficult it is for non-Arabic natives to understand some Islamic finance basic concepts, or even the pronunciation of some Islamic instruments, for instance, mudaraba, musharaka, ijara, or takafu, and so. So all the combined efforts are very, very highly appreciated. And the last point, I want to raise, and please forgive me if I repeat what was already raised, but it deserves once again to stress on the importance of the upcoming stages of the global consultation on guidance notes and the testing of recommendation, because this is crucial to improve their relevance and accuracy, and to develop appropriate guidance for compilers. And based on the geographical breakdown of Islamic finance activities, it seems that our region may be more involved in further stages, and there will be continuous opportunities, or maybe I would say some kind of responsibilities in leading the international efforts and work in the field of Islamic finance. So many thanks to ESCWA, Wafa, and all the team for organizing this timely seminar, and for the opportunity to share Islamic finance task team experience, and for all the continuous efforts to enhance methodologies and data quality for statistics users. Shukran jazilan, and back to you, Wafa.
Thank you, Munir. So like you said, we have to continue this, and the experimentation will come soon. And we need to have pilot countries from our region, from GCC countries, who will be willing to experiment and test those guidance notes to see how they can be tested, and whether as satellite account, or in any other instructions the task team, the joint task team will be doing. And like you said, we have many organizations who are helping. The IMF also has been, very active in this. So I want to stop here and do the second poll quickly, maybe less than 3 minutes. We'll do the second poll because we have very little time left for the very important session 3, which is on the baseline assessment and the experimentation. So please, if you are still with us and you have the energy to vote, go ahead and do your votes. We give 3 minutes for that.
عذرا لا يوجد لدي ترجمة في العراق.
في العراق والله they tried since the beginning. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Our team tried to show, but it seems we cannot. ما عم نقدر إنه نعطيك اللينك أو تشوف البطن اللي تقدر تشوف فيه الترجمة. نعتذر عن
طب شو الحال؟
البرزنتيشنز موجودين بالعربي على الويب سايت، يعني that's the
أنا بفتح المور واختار اللانجويج فقط انجلش، ما في عربي.
yes. I'm sorry إن التيم بيجربوا يحكوا معك على الشات، بس يعني هون I can't help anymore بهيدا. البرزنتيشنز موجودين على الويب سايت بالعربي. بس for the discussion ما عندي. بس عندي كومنت من راسل اللي كان راسل كان institutional و very important input على الإسلاميك finance. راسل is suggesting بالسلايد 9 أمينة and منير إنه الانputs from national central banks and financial supervisors could be mentioned as needed. So maybe you can adjust the presentation and maybe just add this comment. Thank you, Russell, for the input. اوكي اذا التصويت بيعطينا فكره عن اذا كانت الدول اوريدي عم تشتغل على بعض من هذه المواضيع، وهذا جيد لانه بيصير في اسهل الاكسبيرمنتيشن بوقت لاحق. اذا المواضيع اللي اكثر شيء الدول عم تشتغل عليها هي الديجيتاليزيشن، الاسلاميك فاينانس، الانفورمال ايكونومي. ف فاذا هيدي المواضيع مهم انه الدول تكون عم تشتغل عليها، بس كمان مهم انه نتبع الجايدنس نوت والمذكرات الارشاديه التي تتعلق في هذه المواضيع. اذا شكرا على هذا التصويت. ونفس الشيء بنشوف انه الويل بينج والسستينابيلتي ما في شغل عليها، يمكن الدول بتشوفها صعبه انه تطبقها، والكوميونيكيشن ما في كثير عم يشتغلوا عليها، بس هي امر كثير مهم لحتى نقدر انه نوصل المسج انه على اهميه المواضيع اللي عم تتناقش وكيف نوصلها. اذا بهيدي انا رح ننهي هيدا البول ونبلش السيشن الثالثه. السيشن الثالثه رح يقدمها مايكل ستينجر اللي هو الانتر ريجنال ادفايزر على الناشونال اكاونتس، هو ريجنال ادفايزر جديد تعين في شعبة الاحصاء بالامم المتحده، وهو متحمس جدا انه يساعد المناطق ويساعد الدول. فرح اطلب من مايكل يقدم المحاضره الرابعه واللي هي اول محاضره بالسيشن 3، وبعدها في عنا انترفنشن سريعه بماذا يتم على الصعيد الإقليمي. So Michael, please can you go ahead and maybe be brief on this? It's very important, but see how much we can be brief on it.
Okay, Wafa, let me ask you if you can hear me.
Yes, we do.
And you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you very much for organizing this webinar. I'm in charge of the last session. It's kind of short. Many of the things have been already mentioned, one way or another. So I basically want to share with you a couple of messages that we need to put across, and to be very clear and concise in what we intend here. So this presentation is called Assessment and Experimental Estimates. As Eric and also Herman mentioned, this is another component of the SNA update that is different from the previous exercises. So, and what we intend with this component is basically to bring all the updates closer to countries, and vice versa, to get from countries inputs towards the update. So, and how we are doing this, basically, let me jump to the second, I hope it went to a second slide. There you go. It's again the three-pronged approach. Let me just touch a little bit upon this one. So we are going closer to countries during the process of the update, doing two things mainly. One, it's the experimentation and testing that I'll discuss a little bit in more detail, but also this broad consultation. So we're bringing information as it comes available to countries and then getting some feedback. And also, you saw this already in the overall life cycle of the guidance notes. We have the guidance notes leading, obviously, and that's something that we've been discussing, and you have seen how much work has been put on deciding the task teams, the topics, and then developing the guidance notes, that it's something that it's work in progress. So where are we now in this whole process is developing guidance notes, getting some clearance, and then going to the global consultation. So basically, once the guidance notes are done, they are published, and then we need countries to read them and comment on them. So this is part of the work that comes to you now. that it's to give your opinion or your assessment of these guidance notes. And then along, in parallel to this global consultation, we have what we call the experimentation and testing, or the generation of experimental estimates. What's this about? First of all, we need to understand what the guidance notes are about. And this is basically the backbone of the update. But since we are bringing this down to the actual implementation, we need to find out first which guidance notes are going to be tested. So we need to read them, understand them, present them, and then see if those are implementable. And for that, we are going to do two things that I will explain in the next slide. Second, we are having this round of webinars. So this somehow consultation in person or by the web is through a round of webinars. And for you to know, I don't know if it was mentioned, we are conducting these webinars all around. So this is another one of the webinars that we are conducting to all the regions in the world. And I'll tell you why later also. We are gathering data. Also, we need to know where countries are standing in terms of implementation of the national accounts more broadly, because it's not that we are jumping from 2008 to 2025. This is going to be a parallel run. So while we work towards improving our national accounts that are 93 or 2008, we will try to incorporate as much as possible the new things that are coming for the 2025 SNA. And for that, we need the help from countries. So you have seen the task teams are maybe far away from you, except from what we heard, or maybe you are participating, but it's not the general rule for countries to be involved in the development. But now is the time for you to get involved through global consultations and the planning of your improvements, enhancements of the national accounts. And one of the vehicles, as it was mentioned, to implement these new things are the experimental estimates. So what are the principles that are guiding us on this component? First, we have two different levels of assessment, of testing, so to speak. One is the baseline assessment, as my colleagues mentioned. Basically, we want to understand, we want to see, we want to prove whether the recommendations are implementable or not, in what countries and when, and so on. And second, if those recommendations are implementable, we want countries to come and volunteer and say, I would like to try that recommendation. And there's a way to decide what countries will do that, will help with that. But still, once we have the volunteering country, we will go and try to develop those experimental estimates. Why? Because we want to understand how much it costs, how difficult it is, and how big is the impact on the regular aggregates. Countries need to volunteer. This is not an imposition of any sort. And we are aiming at having countries from all the regions. So we want this experimental estimate to be broad in terms of level of income and in terms of region. So we want this to be representative. And as Wafa has mentioned in a couple of opportunities, at least, you have heard that the interinstitutional collaboration is key. So we are working together, the ISWGNA, in trying to merge and gain synergies or exploit synergies between this work. So if the IMF is working with you in something, we will know about that, and then we will not do it over again. So there's no duplications. Regarding the baseline assessments and the component itself, this was mentioned by Herman. We are collecting data, metadata. So we want to scan your system to see whether you are ready to implement or not. And then we will cross that information with the requirements from the guidance notes. And then we will try to, as I said, assess these recommendations with numbers. And all this information that we are gathering, both the baseline assessment and the results of the experimental estimates, will be somehow gathered and shared back to the task teams. So this is feedback to the guidance notes. Eric said that we are informing back to the writers of these notes regarding the actual implementation. In terms of the baseline assessment, let me tell you, we are developing a template that includes most of the information that is needed to be known before the actual implementation comes. But that information is available somewhere, and we're collecting that. But there might be some very specific pieces of information that we don't have. So we may come to you and ask you with a questionnaire, short questionnaire, whether you have this information or not, and that will help us decide and generate statistics on the feasibility of implementation. And the assessment is basically crossing that information with the requirements of the guidance notes, as I said at the beginning, before, sorry. And the criteria and the tools will be guided by the guidance notes. So again, this was also mentioned, not all the recommendations are going to be tested, okay? But we need that the recommendations are endorsed by the AAG and the BOP to be tested. So we need to wait until the guidance notes are ready to go to the experimental estimates. Although the baseline assessment, we are collecting the data now, and the additional data will be collected using surveys or questionnaires or some other way of collecting data. But it's going to be light. The heavy load is already done. And then just after that, once we have the guidance notes out, the recommendations and approved, so to speak, we have the assessment, we will go into the experimental estimates. And that basically means that some expert will help you, if you need to implement such or that recommendation, and we will generate results in a kind of experimental way. So we are not going to do it fully, but we will need the main results fast, because this is fast. I mean, several months, but we can wait years to get the results. So that's why it's approached as experimental estimates. Let me point out that some of the guidance notes, it was mentioned, are built based on well-known satellite accounting. So those are already implemented. So there will be several guidance notes that will not require experimental estimates because they are already there. And we have been proposing, and again, that we should, or you countries should prioritize the recommendations and volunteer for experimental estimates based on the impact of the recommendation. So if the recommendation is proposing changes in the boundaries, then it's really relevant for you to have a notion of what the impact will be. We have the type 2 that proposes changes to the 2000 SNA core accounts. So we will have new accounts like the labor accounts that Eric mentioned. The type 3 is those that are proposing supplementary tables, but still within boundaries. So the usual 2008 boundaries are not broken. So we are basically producing more details or new details or new aggregates, but still within the boundaries. And the type 4 are those recommendations that go beyond the boundaries. So those are proposing extended accounts or satellite accounts, what we understand as satellite accounts. The timeline, we expect to have all this process, the outreach, and the experimental estimates within a 2-year window, so until mid-2023, more or less. We are trying to consolidate some of the activities, so there won't be too much burden. There's a lot of burden already, and we are in the middle of COVID still, so we are conscious of that. So basically what we have been trying to do is to plan accordingly. So coordination, monitoring tools, and so on. So, and in this case, let me put it again here, interinstitutional collaboration has been really good. So we have a couple of years to have this. Next steps, these are not consecutive. You already know we have the guidance notes life cycle, and the experimental estimate depend on that life cycle. We are running these regional webinars. There will be two types of webinars, as it was mentioned. This one that is general, so we are telling you what the situation is with the updates, and the forthcoming ones this year and next year are going to be really specific to some of the main topics or the topics that you think are more relevant: Islamic finance, informal economy, digitalization, etc. The baseline assessment is something that we're doing centralizedly on a central manner, except for the specific data that we may need your help to collect data. And again, in parallel, we are going to run this process to select countries for the experimental estimates. And all these results are going to be gathered in a central repository. I'll leave this to you for you to look in your slides. This is basically an example of the data that we are collecting. I mentioned this, the outreach. We have the Inceptions and the thematic webinars, and really appreciate your feedback on the thematic webinars. So we basically go and spend time explaining or discussing things that are relevant to you. So that's all from my presentation. The questions that I have for consideration are: do you have development plans? So this is not something that you're implementing now, but going forward next year and following, plans that may include some of the new issues to be implemented. So Wafa mentioned the supply and use table. If you have a plan to develop a supply and use table in the coming years, maybe it could be a good idea for us to know that you have that plan, so we can discuss with you and try to expand a little bit that supply and use table and generate a digital supply and use table. So then we solve two issues at once. And second, if that's the case, or even if you are developing something, would you consider volunteering to be part of these experimental estimates? On what topic? And the second thing that is important is whether your authorities would support this. We may be really encouraged to do something, but we really need the support from our bosses to work here. And these are questions just to get understanding, or what's your potential ability to engage on this component. It's not, we are not committing to do something together. We need to know first, and then we run all this through the transparent procedures and the selection of countries. I hope I covered everything. If you have questions, I'm happy to respond. Thank you very much. Back to you, Wafa.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. Maybe your slide on structural information and baseline assessment was a very important one. إذن شكرا لمايكل على تقديم البيسلاين اسسمنت. إذن هيدا يعني الاكسرسايز هو ما راح ينعمل من شعبة الإحصاء بالأمم المتحدة لحالهم، يعني هن عم بيجربوا يجمعوا المعلومات اللي متوفرة، ولكن يعني عم بيقول راح يصير في كويستشنير لنسأل الدول. أيضا صار في اقتراح إنه ينعمل ويبينارز لحتى نشوف إذا هذه المعلومات يعني اللي تجمعت هي يعني واضحة وكافية لحتى يقدر يعمل البيسلاين اسسمنت. تم الاجتماع مع المكتب الإقليمي للميتاك، IMF ميتاك، ويعني هاي الاقتراحات صدرت حتى نشتغل سوا لحتى البيسلاين اسسمنت يكون يعني موضوع مشاركة بين الدول وبين المنظمات. ايضا صار في اجتماع مع GCC ستات، وايضا انه يعني تم الحديث كيف يمكن ان يتم البيسلاين اسسمنت والاكسبيرمنتيشن. فاذا عندكم اسئله فيكم تحطوها بالشات. وبشكر مايكل على البرزنتيشن. من ناحيه في عنا باند بيقول انه ما هي يعني الاعمال الاقليميه بهذا المجال. اذا انا راح اترك المجال لزميلنا من GCC ستات احمد الفريد يقدم لنا انه كGCC ستات ما هو العمل، انه ما هو البلان اللي هن راح يقدموه بالنسبه للابديت للSNA. بعدها راح نعمل البول والفاينل ايفالويشن، فراح نكون ايضا يعني بقدر الامكان انه نختصر. أحمد، هل أنت مستعد لتقدم لنا البرزنتيشن؟
نعم ممكن أشارككم السكرين.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you, Ahmed.
Do you see my screen?
Sorry. Yes, we do now. حتى بالpresentation mode, and please be brief, بس please, Ahmed.
Okay, please. Within 5 minutes only. The GCC start toward the 2025 SNA. According to GCC strategy, according 2021-2025, that by 2025 all GCC countries should كل GCC countries complete and implementation and compile, disseminate
في مشكلة بالصوت أحمد؟
اوكي.
لا ما في، يعني أنت بس لأنه عم بيقطع you can go ahead لأنه في ترجمة. فيك تطفي زر الترجمة من عندك بليز.
still
لا go ahead بس شيل أنت أطفي زر الترجمة من عندك.
اوكي still يعني
go ahead بس إنه حتى ما يتقطع، حتى تقدر تحكي بشكل مستمر.
يس بطل.
بعدك عم تسمع الترجمة؟
بس هي yes just a minute. Share participant mute. I cannot see it here. Disappear. Copy scrub and hide.
اوكي. يعني لازم تشوف وين في زر الترجمة، لازم تطفيه عندك.
ايوه مختفي يعني عندي مختفي.
اوكي يلا جو اهيد بدون تقطيع. يس
just a minute. Just a minute. When okay. Okay, not here, it's there. كان موجود. لا هذا مش شاركين معي. هني هم فاضوا. It's live. Okay. More.
You can go ahead Ahmed.
Okay, just a minute. في disable. يعني I'm so sorry because it disappeared. It was here but it disappeared.
I think try to just read without stopping.
Okay. Implementation of Isaac CBC and CBC2 another classification recommended by 2008 SNA. Moreover, compiling the disseminating quarterly GDP and constant. And constant prices by expenditure and production approach, also compiling and disseminating quarterly GDP by income approach.
We stopped hearing you, Ahmed. Can you stop sharing the screen? Turn off the interpretation and then go back and share screen. نحن رح ناخذ 10 دقائق زيادة للاجتماع حتى نقدر ننهي المحاضرة والبول. طيب أحمد، نحن رح نروح نبلش البول. Maybe أنت when you disconnect you can connect again if you don't mind. So if you want, remove the sharing the screen and then connect again by the time بنكون نحن عملنا السيشن 3 assessment. So إذن للمشاركين هل ممكن إنه الإجابة على
a new method for data collection by statistical and statistical business. A new method, virtual innovation lab will help on that. There's a progress on price start with using web scraping, scanner data and big data. Sustainability and sustainable development goals, statistics on climate change and disaster and environment. A special department working on SDG, and there's a platform that also. There's another department working on environment statistics. They are starting their work in the system of environment economy accounting. GCC countries are not in the same stage in the implementing 2008 SNA. KSA is achieving high level in implementation 2008 SNA recommendation and publishing its annual quarterly database and applying seasonally adjustment. Other GCC countries are committed and in the progress in implementing 2008 SNA. The technical assistance provided by GCC Stat to member countries. GCC Stat is committed to continuing provision technical assistance to GCC member countries. In order to implementing their work program, including the objective GCC strategy for 2025 that are in the line with work program of the Intersecretariat Working Group of National Account and Tax. Taking in consideration statistical difference among countries, and some countries may need in the future to consider 2-in-1 transition for 1993 SNA to 2025 SNA. Other new challenges and opportunities. There are also other compilation issues that are high importance for the GCC countries as member of Economic and Custom Union. First, the compilation of harmonized foreign investment statistics based on IMF BBM6 and OECD BBMD4. Moreover, harmonization of monetary statistics, including our joint effort with member countries. Also establishing a collection of inter-GCC purchasing and flows. As a long-term objective, GCC Stat considers GCC International Visit Position Statistics, IIP. GCC Stat recommending to adding compilation of monetary BOP and IBB statistics for the Economic Union and the consolidated research agenda of SNA, BOP, or IIB research issue for the updating of the 2008 SNA and BBM6. International cooperation, GCC Stat cooperation and collaboration closely with UNSD, SCOA, IMF, UNCTAD, and also Eurostat, and indeed have a high interest to further developing to strengthen our cooperation with SCOA. Moreover, looking forward to working closely with contributing to the work of tax and ISWG and research agenda towards 2025 SNA, updating 2008 system of national account. We are also looking forward to closely and contribute to work of the IMF Committee of Balance of Payment to start the peer review of the GCCSRF. Thank you for your listening and sorry for
Thank you very much,
translation.
Ahmad. Maybe you can send us the presentation and we will share it on the website. Thank you very much. And yes, we can, the collaboration is very important to, it will be much more efficient and know the GCStat as group will be implementing and experimenting. So thank you very much, Ahmad, for this. We will go for the poll. 3 minutes again, please. And if you have questions on the chat, please do, and thank you for those who were with us and have to leave now because we know you have commitments. So thank you for joining. And please, if you have time to answer the questions of the poll, please do. شكرا جزيلا على التصويت. إذا متفائلين إن شاء الله إنه في development plans على new issues to be implemented وفي دول بهمها إنه تعمل experimentation. إذا نحن على موعد إنه نقدر نعمل مع pilot countries اللي عندها الانفراستراكشر وعندها القدرة إنه تعمل الاكسبيرمنتيشن، إنه نقدر نتعاون سوا لحتى نشوف الجايدنس نوتس إذا بيقدروا يتطبقوا بأي مجال. أيضاً بالمالتيبل تشويس شفنا إنه الديجيتاليزيشن يعني هي موضوع ممكن إنه الاكسبيرمنتينج فيها، والانفورمال ايكونومي again، فنفس المواضيع اللي كانت عم نطرحها من قبل. هلا كمان ندعو للتفاؤل أنه هل هي إداراتكم يعني توافق أو تشجع على هذا التطبيق. عنا 56% عم بيقولوا نعم. إذا بننهي هيدا البول ورح نحطه بالتقرير، يعني بفيد أيضا المشاركين أنه يعرفوا كيف كانت أجوبة المشاركين فيها. بالنسبة لما تبقى في عنا تعليقات. أنا بعثت لكم اليوتيوب ستريمينج لهذا الويبينار. في عنا evaluation form وسيم حمود حضرها وحتى اونلاين. عندكم اللينك انه تقدروا تعبوا الفورم. بعتها بالشات، لا على الشات بالزوم. رح نرجع نبعتها باي ايميل. وايضا مايكل بعت بعض اللينكس على حتى لنا في مودل سايت. رح يكونوا يعني الماتيريال اللي كانت في هذا الميتينج تكون موجوده عليها. هلا في تعليقات من المشاركين جربنا قد ما فينا نرد عليها. ايضا انتم عندكم هلا الانفورميشن تبع المنظمين. اي اسئله تخطر على بالكم بعد هذا الويبينار نحن على استعداد. في عندنا 5 سنين قادمه حتى نقدر نتواصل معكم على الاكسبيرمنتيشن وتنفيذ نظام الحسابات القوميه 2025. إذا في أي أسئلة مضطرين هلأ تسألوها. أنا بدي أختم الويبينار وأشكر المنظمين اللي كانوا معنا من شبكة الإحصاء بالأمم المتحدة والورلد بانك وزملائنا من الدول، وخاصة المشاركين من التاسك تيم تبع الإسلاميك فاينانس. يعني شاركونا أيضاً بمجموعة كبيرة من المشاركين. إذا بنختم هذا الاجتماع ونحن على موعد بكرة للي بدهم يشاركونا بالاجتماع تبع التكنيكال ادفايزري جروب للإيكونوميك ستاتستكس. وفي مواضيع كثيرة رح نرجع نناقشها مع الخبراء من المنظمات المعنية ومع مشاركة من قبلكم. إذا بنقول لكم شكرا على المشاركة، ونلتقي غدا وبعد غد. هناك جلسات صباحية وجلسات بعد الظهر، وأي أسئلة أنتم بحاجة إلى تبعتونا للفريق ونحن على استعداد لتقديم الأجوبة. إذا نهاركم سعيد وشكرا على المشاركة. Thank you very much. ونلتقي غدا وبعد غد. هناك جلسات صباحية وجلسات بعد الظهر، وأي أسئلة أنتم بحاجة إلى تبعتونا